let's look at things. Let's look at our foreign policy. Let's look at our domestic policy. Let's look how we're like only 5% of the population and use between 25 to 40% of the resources. Let's look about how we're enslaving people in other countries to like line our shelves with cheap crap at Walmart. You know, if we had done that, what a different place this world would be. But of course we can't do that because the robber class wanted it. The robber class wanted a new Pearl Harbor. The robber class wanted to spread this military hegemony, corporate hegemony all over the world. So no matter who was president, that's what the robber class wanted, and the robber class gets what the robber class wants. So I read you a myth. You're going to be really surprised at my next 10 myths that I put in. And I'm going to break my new book up into 2 parts, foundational myths and organizational myths. So, and then the conclusion revolution is going to be a little more radical. So anyway, I'm going to read you my America Has a Free Press chapter. It's very short. And that's going to be really expanded in my next book. So while Bob Petrakis is here, did you think it was really weird how the corporate media just went nuts over stolen Iranian elections? And they didn't even mention our stolen election? You know what I mean? And then the corporate media also, the Green Revolution, oh, look at those brave people. They're standing up for their rights. But when we stand up for our rights, we're called kooks. You know, when the people of Oakland stood up to the Oakland status quo establishment, and they were called thugs. You know, but the people who are standing up for their rights in Iran are brave. Well, we're brave. And we just have to say when we stand up for, and that's what I tell people who interview me about, they want to know about all my arrests, and do you think it was bad and harmed, whatever. And I said, when I'm standing up for my rights, I'm standing up for yours too, whether you know it or not. So, anyway, America Has a Free Press. This is a fun chapter. It's very well known that the free press, when I do that, that's air quotes, of the U.S. of A. is owned by a few media cartels, which also, not so coincidentally, own companies that profit off of war. Isn't that weird? My own experience with the corporate media are pretty extensive for someone who has only been working in the public eye for a little over 4 years. My recent career, since my son died, involves being on the other side of the interview as a regular talk show host. At the end of my campaign against Nancy Pelosi, I'm going to email her and tell her she has a lot of friends in Columbus. At the end of my campaign against Nancy Pelosi, I was offered a radio spot on the local progressive talk radio station, Green 960. In the waning days of a very strenuous, stressful, and humiliating campaign, I was sort of busy and took this offer of a talk show to mean that I was going to get paid for doing it. I felt even though I had no official broadcasting experience, I felt ready. Because in case you haven't noticed, I'm very opinionated. And I thought I would bring a fresh perspective to a mediatocracy, I think I made that up, that seems to feed off of the robber class left-right voices. Ed Schultz slams Rush Limbaugh, who slams Keith Olbermann, who slams Bill O'Reilly, who slams Chris Matthews, who slams Rachel Maddow, who slams Sean Hannity, who slams Ed Schultz. Do you get the picture? Yeah. It's all about these fake wars between commentators and not about the real news. The left media exists to support Democrats over democracy, and the right media exists to support Republicans over the Republic. Then there is me, someone who is totally nonpartisan, is a totally nonpartisan, principle-based commentator who condemns violence, oppression, and injustice, no matter which political party is responsible for it. That's not so popular in the left-right robber class mentality. After the election, I finally realized that Green 960 was not offering me a paid position, but Clear Channel, who owns Green 960, was offering me a time slot. I was an infomercial. Yeah, I was an infomercial for a very pretty price of $1,100 for 1 hour a week. Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking, obviously wasn't, when I signed the contract. And then Clear Channel expected me to pay $52,000 up front. And everyone was shocked. They were in shock when I patiently tried to explain that I didn't have that kind of money. I was allowed to go on the air anyway, and we actually lasted 10 weeks before I realized we couldn't go on paying an obscene amount of money for 1 hour. There are better ways to spend $4,400 a month. Besides, all I had to advertise was the truth, and the dividends for that concept aren't abundant. Even though I was essentially an infomercial, I gave you guys a little preview up in that previous paragraph there. Even though I was essentially an infomercial, there was a time before my show aired that I was told by the station manager that I couldn't say anything negative about the mayor of San Francisco, Gavin Newsom. So, of course, my very next show, I interviewed an environmental rights activist who had tons of evidence showing that the mayor was very complicit in environmental poisoning and economic exploitation of a neighborhood right in his town. Why do I even mention my own experience? Clear Channel will give such hate mongers and liars like Michael Savage and Rush Limbaugh very lucrative contracts, but I was not about to give any more of mine or your hard-earned money to support those two bloated gas bags any longer. That actually is toned down. Alternative voices to the robber class status quo do not get paid for their jobs. We have to pay the robbers if we aren't careful. The media industrial complex were active participants in selling the invasion of Iraq to the gullible American public. The Pentagon placed shills as experts on news shows to use pointers on maps to show with flashy graphics where the WMD were and to tell other blatant lies. Do you guys remember that? Yeah. When I was first in Crawford, Texas, camping out in front of the Bush Play Ranch, I ran afoul of CNN's Anderson Cooper. Do you guys all know him? I've toned this down too. Anderson had me on a remote feed early on, and I said that I wish the media had actually done some investigative reporting during the run-up to the war. Anderson got his boxers in a bunch and said, "We can only ask the question so many times, Cindy." To me, this was and still is not acceptable. Investigative journalism is not sitting in the White House press room, yucking it up with R.A. Fletcher or Scotty McClellan and accepting bald-faced lies as fact. You know, the media, they're just like a propaganda tool. You tell us what to say and we'll say it. And now they're doing it with Iran. And people actually believe that Iran has nuclear capabilities. Like they believed that Saddam had nuclear capabilities. Okay, I'm going back. So Anderson decided he would prove to everyone that he was a journalist. And he stormed into Camp Casey a few days later to do a hatchet job on ... George Bush, the person who lied and was responsible for tens of thousands of deaths at that point. No, ... me. Big, brave Anderson tried to destroy the character of a Gold Star mother who only wanted the killing to end. Furthermore, the media industrial complex will tolerate no criticism of Israel and will repeat the lies about Iranian nukes without any shame about